Okay, so we're going to talk about using factoring using the quadratic formula. Now, I've had students that I've taught from other countries that strictly only use this way. So if you want to use this, that's kind of why I'm showing this video. So the quadratic formula is basically a formula that would, one, have to be memorized. So that's the hard part about this, because if you mess up the memorization of the formula, then you're not going to get it. But also what the quadratic formula is used for is generally used for solving for values of x. So I hope you understand it's not a formula for factoring. It's a formula for solving in an equation for a value of x. But what I can do is that when I solve for these values of x, I can rewrite them into their statements that were used when multiplied together. And I hope you'll understand and you'll see this. So first things first, the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula is the opposite of your b term plus or minus the square root of the b value squared minus 4 times the a value times the c value divided by 2a. And what this gives you is what the value of x is. Okay? So that right there, if I plug it into any formula, it will give me the value of x. So what we need to understand is that the 2 is the a. Negative 11, this is important when we talk about negatives and using parentheses. The negative 11 is my b term, and the positive 12, know that their signs must travel with them, is the c term. Okay? So when I go ahead and I go through this and I do it, I'm going to go ahead and plug it in over here, and I'm going to show you at the end here how we get it, and I'm going to put my factored statement over here. So first things first, filling in. The opposite of b. Well, b is negative 11, so the opposite of it is positive 11. So I'm going to write positive 11. Okay? And don't forget that we have to write this x equals here. So x equals positive 11, plus or minus is important, okay, because we're going to have to do an addition and a subtraction to get two different answers. The square root of, okay, well, b squared. So if I take this middle term and I square it. Now, the important thing is that when you square a negative, please don't forget that you must be doing a negative times a negative. Do not stick it into your calculator with just the negative 11 and then the square button, because you'll get negative 21 and you'll get all of this wrong. If you're going to plug it into a calculator because you don't know 11 times 11 is 121, make sure you use parentheses, plug the number, and outside the parentheses is where you put the square. So it should look like this in your calculator. Parentheses, negative 11, close parentheses, squared. So then we subtract this 4 times a, which is 2, okay? And then we times that by the positive 12. So multiply, I get 12 here, okay? So then I close this out, and then what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be dividing by 2 times whatever a, which was 2, okay? So there we go. So this is the formula. We plug it in, and we go from there. So then we get x equals this 11 plus or minus. So I'm going to do kind of 2 steps at one here just for my board space. But what I would do is I can type all this into a calculator if you want, but I'm going to know that this is 121, and then 4 times 2 is 8, and 8 times 12. So to help you if maybe you struggle with 8 times 12. So in this case, 8 times 12. Well, I do 8 times 10 first, which is 80. Times it by 2 is 16, so I get 96. So this is going to be the square root of 121 minus 96. All right? And then I take this, all right? And then I get divide by 2 times 2, which is 4. So what I now have is that I've got 11 plus or minus the square root of, and in this case 121 minus 96 is 25, which is nice, which is 4. So again, with this method, it actually requires you to know a little bit about square roots too. So essentially what I'm asking myself is what number multiplied by itself makes 25, and in this case it's 5. So what I now have is that this, instead of square root of 25, is just plus or minus 5. These are the 2 problems that I'm now going to go ahead and create. So what I have here is that I get the first one, okay, I do x plus 5, then divide by 4. So x plus 5 is 16, divided by 4 is 4. So my first answer here is 4. Okay, I have 2 answers because the first thing tells me to add, the second one that says do 11 minus 5. 11 minus 5 is 6. So 6 divided by 4 is now reduced. I don't really want to use decimals here. You can, but I don't want to use them, especially for factoring. So I get 6 over 4, which is 3 over 2. Okay? So what I now have here is I've got 2 now statements saying, so I'm going to have to erase this, but I've got 2 statements saying that x equals 4 and x equals 3 halves by using the quadratic formula. Again, we just plug numbers into this formula and we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to transpose these and I'm going to write them out separately and show you how it is we come up with the statements that we came up with before in the other videos. So I'm going to go ahead and erase this. So I'm just going to move this up here. So the first statement I found that said that x equaled 4. Okay, and the next statement I had was that x equaled 3 halves. So 3 divided by 2 there. Okay, so the way we go ahead and solve this process is, one, we solve these for now 0. So essentially I'm trying to make 0 on one side of my equations. So in this case I would have to subtract 4 and I would have to subtract 4. Now x minus 4 I can't do, so I write it as x minus 4 now equals 0. And then I go over to this one. Now 3 halves, I don't want to just subtract 3 halves because I don't want to equate fractions in this. So what I'm going to do first step is, if I'm dividing by 2, let's just multiply by 2. So I multiply by 2 on both sides, and what I now have is 2x equals 3. And then from there, I just subtract 3 from both sides, so I get 2x is minus 3 is now equal to 0. So essentially what I'm doing is, anytime I move a term to the other side, just make it the opposite sign. So it's positive on the right, it's negative on the left. And what I now have is this statement of 2x minus 3 and x minus 4. These are the two expressions that I simply multiply by each other. So this is a quantity times this quantity, so I write it out as x minus 4 times 2x minus 3. So what I'm simply showing you here is that there are multiple strategies to get to the same answer. And this is going to be my factored state of x minus 4 times the quantity of 2x minus 3. And I hope you see that in the first 2 videos that I did, that this is the answer that we got. And so I hope that helps with whatever you're doing. So whichever method you choose, learn it well and learn to be successful with it.